Welcome to our Ibn Battuta Group Project by Allison Shepard, Anna Zogby, Sam Fisher, and Taylor Evans. Ibn Battuta became one of the first travelers of the world during the mid-14th century. His journey led him to the Kingdom of Mali in 1351. Written accounts of Ibn Battuta's journey can help us to understand political practices, religious practices, and lifestyle, justice, trade, and commerce in the Kingdom of Mali. Ibn Battuta came from a family of legal scholars and judges in Tangier, Morocco. He practiced Sufism, which is a form of Islam, and was motivated to become an explorer to fulfill the fifth pillar of Islam, called the Hajj, by making a pilgrimage to Mecca. He also wished to expand his education and to eventually become a Qadi, an Islamic judge. Battuta's journey covered about 73,000 miles, about 44 modern-day countries, over the course of 29 years. Written accounts of his travels can be found in a book called the Rihla. Battuta eventually died in Morocco at the age of 73, around 1368 or 1369. Battuta began his travels in 1325 from Tangier, Morocco. He initially traveled alone on horseback, but joined others along his journey, forming a caravan. The caravan included ambassadors of the Sultan of Tunis and merchants seeking to make the Hajj pilgrimage. They traveled along the Barbary coast of northern Africa, stopping at different cities along the way, such as Tlemcen, Algiers, and Tripoli. Along the way they encountered illness and other dangers, such as bandits. Battuta's caravan eventually reached Mecca in 1326, and after about 24 years of traveling, he reached the Kingdom of Mali. Upon his return to Morocco in 1355, a scholar named Ibn Juzay from Granada, Spain, wrote Battuta's accounts of his journey into a book called the Rihla. Battuta's accounts in the Rihla can help us to understand more about the political practices and ceremonies in the Kingdom of Mali during the 14th century. Battuta's arrival to Mali was unfortunately a little rough. According to his accounts, he claims that 10 days after our arrival, we ate a gruel made of a root resembling colocasia, which is preferred by them to all other dishes. We all fell ill. There were 6 of us, and one of our number died. I, for my part, went to the morning prayer and fainted there. Fortunately, in Mali, they had access to a medicinal root called Badar to help with his sickness. He says that he asked a certain Egyptian for a loosening remedy, and he gave me a thing called Badar made of vegetable roots, which he mixed with aniseed and sugar and stirred in water. I drank it off and vomited what I had eaten, together with a large quantity of bile. God preserved me from death, but I was ill for months. The sub-Saharan Kingdom of Mali was in power from 1230 to 1600. It was divided into 14 large provinces, 24 towns, and many villages. The kingdom was not strictly governed by the king, but by regional governors who were allowed to govern according to local traditions. It was a hierarchical society with different social classes, including provincial rulers, nobles, judges, administrators, artisans, farmers, and slaves. There was a large amount of respect towards the king, called the Mansa, or Sultan. This was shown through the customs and behaviors of the people of Mali. The most famous sultan was Mansa Musa from 1312 to 1337. He made the pilgrimage to Mecca from 1324 to 1326, and he helped to develop Timbuktu and a great new mosque. Mali was a very wealthy and successful kingdom due to their abundance of natural resources and location in between the trans-Saharan trade route. Gold, salt, and copper were the main abundant raw materials in the kingdom that were used for trade. Agriculture was also an important part of the kingdom. They grew millet, sorghum, and rice, and they also fished and raised cattle. On one occasion, Battuta witnessed a ceremony of fast breaking, in which a group of poets came to the Sultan, and each of them is inside a figure resembling a thrush, made of feathers, and provided with a wooden head with a red beak, to look like a thrush's head. They stand in front of the Sultan in this ridiculous makeup and recite their poems. This shows the importance of respect and honor for the Sultan in the Kingdom of Mali. Even Battuda's accounts describe the differences in how men and women dressed in the Kingdom of Mali. Men would change their clothing in the presence of the Sultan. They would wear clean white garments on Fridays, and even if a man has nothing but an old worn shirt, he washes it and cleans it, and wears it to the Friday service. Women did not wear any clothes. Battuta also described how the Sultan would dress with a bow in his hand and a quiver on his back. And on his head he has a golden skull cap, bound with a gold band which has narrow ends shaped like knives, more than a span in length. His usual dress is a velvety red tunic, made of the European fabrics called mutanfas. Music in the Kingdom of Mali. Musical instruments consisted of reeds, calabashes, rattles, bows, and drums. Battuta accounts for this by explaining that a chair is placed for the Duga, the interpreter, to sit on. He plays on an instrument made of reeds, with some small calabashes at its lower end, and chants a poem in praise of the Sultan, recalling his battles and deeds of valor. The women and girls sing along with him and play with bows. Accompanying them are about 30 youths wearing red woolen tunics and white skull caps. Each of them has a drum slung from his shoulder and beats it. Ibn Battuta attended ceremonies and noted several dancers dressed as birds, chanting before the mansa. He viewed this as an insult to Islam. He observed female slaves and servants who went stark naked into the court for all to see, subjects who grovelled before the Sultan, beating the ground with their elbows and throwing dust and ashes over their heads, royal poets who romped about in feathers and bird masks. Battuta also noted how their women show no bashfulness before men and do not veil themselves. Battuta explained how important the Islamic religion was in Mali. He said that on Fridays, if a man does not go early to the mosque, he cannot find a corner to pray in, on account of the crowd. It is a custom of theirs to send each man his boy to the mosque with his prayer mat. The boy spreads it out for his master in a place befitting him and remains on it until he comes to the mosque. The prayer mats are made of the leaves of a tree resembling a date palm, but without fruit. At one point in Battuta's journey, he describes an instance where a man had chained his children up in order to learn the Koran. He stated that yet another is their zeal for learning the Koran by heart. They put their children in chains if they show any backwardness in memorizing it, and they are not set free until they have learned it by heart. I visited the Cadi in his house on the day of the festival. His children were chained up, so I said to him, "Will you not let them loose?" He replied, "I shall not do so until they learn the Koran by heart." This shows how religious beliefs played a major role in the Kingdom of Mali. In the Kingdom of Mali, all ceremonies contain displays of wealth, power, or military strength. Battuta explains that on certain days the Sultan holds audiences in the palace yard, where there is a platform under a tree, with 3 steps. They call this the pempi. It is carpeted with silk and has cushions placed on it. Over it is raised the umbrella, which is a sort of pavilion made of silk, surmounted by a bird in gold about the size of a falcon. A display of silk or gold shows the importance of wealth in the Kingdom of Mali. Battuta also describes the presence of power and military strength in the court of King Suleiman. He says that as he takes his seat, the drums, trumpets, and bugles are sounded. 3 slaves go out at a run to summon the sovereign's deputy and the military commanders, who enter and sit down. 2 saddled and bridled horses are brought, along with 2 goats, which they hold to serve as a protection against the evil eye. Honesty is also a virtue of the Mali people. On one occasion, Battuta noted how people in Mali approach the Sultan and recalls his deeds in the Sultan's service, saying, "I did so and so on such a day," or "I killed so and so on such a day." Those who have knowledge of this confirm his words, which they do by plucking the cord of a bow and releasing it with a twang, just as an archer does when shooting an arrow. If the Sultan says "truly spoken" or thanks him, he removes his clothes and dusts. That is their idea of good manners. This ceremonial practice reflects the importance of honesty in the Kingdom of Mali. Trade and commerce were important aspects to the wealth and success of the Kingdom of Mali. Mali was located on the Niger River, which played a large role in agriculture and trade. As mentioned previously, it was part of the trans-Saharan trade route, connecting them with the rest of the world of Islam and other parts of the world. Gold, salt, and copper were abundant in Mali, which contributed to its high status of power and wealth. Other merchants, such as Berber caravans, brought books, cereal, dried fruit, horses, cotton and woolen clothing, pottery, and jewels through Mali, through the cities of Timbuktu and Gao, in exchange for salt, gold, copper, and slaves. Ibn Battuta left his home of Tangier, Morocco, to make a pilgrimage to Mecca, and ended up becoming one of the first world travelers. He arrived in the Kingdom of Mali in 1351, describing his accounts of their lifestyle, judicial systems, religious practices, and trade, as described in the Rila. The Mali Empire played a large role in the expansion of trade throughout northern Africa, the Muslim world, and other parts of the world.